Hello and welcome to Blackbear Atheist. Today we're going to apologetics shenanigans like Cliff. It's not Cliff and Stewart. Today it's just Cliff and his shenanigans. And it's gonna be why homosexuality is a sin. This is by the channel Eli Assel Clips, and I guess he's an interviewer. I'm not sure if he has a hat on, so I'm guessing he's Jewish. If not, it doesn't matter. He's interviewing Cliff about Christianity and specifically why homosexuality is a sin. I'm guessing they're gonna get there or they had other things to say. Let's get into the video.
In Christianity, I've got the verse written down, but if a man lies with a male, I'll read out, but you probably know off by heart. Do you know
Well,
which one
look at that. I was wrong. It's father and son conversation. So it's not just Jesus. It's not just Cliff, it's Stewart too.
what? If a man lies with a male as with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination, they shall surely be put to death. Their blood is upon them. Now, is that just, that sounds to me like a rule. You said like all matters in language. That sounds to me as a rule, not just as a story. Is that is that a rule? Is that a story? And what does that mean to all the people that are gay, that are having those relationships?
Before they answer, this is what I think. And you can take it or you can leave it. Even if the Bible does say that, and you believe that, yes, it was actually specifically saying this about homosexuality, you can technically, not even just technically, and now Christians wants to argue that they don't need to wear different things in the Torah that the Old Testament says and the laws in the Old Testament. You can argue from a Christian standpoint that this is not a law for everybody, just for the Jews back then. You can argue this. Again, showing one of the flaws in Christianity as a whole, or religion in general. Like, you can make the text say basically whatever you wanted to say. Even when it's clearly distinctive, like, don't lie with another man. But once the set up a precedent of, A, sometimes the text doesn't necessarily apply to everybody, just this distinctive people back then we could, some things like this could be applied to just them. That's what I think. And I don't care what Paul has to say in the New Testament. I'm just talking about the Old Testament in general.
Well, about 364 times in the Bible, we read, both in the Old Testament and the New Testament, Torah and New Testament, we read that sexual immorality of the heterosexual type is wrong. There are
About what? Over 300? No, where? Look, if it says sexual immorality, I don't think that's encompassed of saying homosexuality. Considering the fact that it was technically like mentioned two times in the Bible, one in the Old Testament, if I'm not wrong, and one in the New. And if it's more than that, it's probably a rehashing of the same thing, not lying with another man. And if Paul mentioned it in the New Testament, again, I could give a shit less about what Paul has to say. I'm talking an actual decree in terms of law, not just Paul writing a letter and saying, you should probably not do this. Who gives him the right?
about 9 examples in the Bible where homosexual sex is critiqued as being wrong. But it all goes back to Genesis chapter 1 and 2. In Genesis chapter 1, we read, God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. And then in Genesis 2:24, we read, for this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother, be united to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So, the scriptures are pretty clear, consistent from Genesis to Revelation, that God gave us this beautiful gift of sexuality, and we are to enjoy it within the context of a lifelong commitment between one man and one woman till death parts us.
That's not what it says. That's not what it says. Saying God created man and female, or saying God created females for the pleasure of men, however you want to put that shit, does not mean that that's the only way that it has to be. And talking about marriage of how it's described, when the Torah, this Genesis story was written down, doesn't mean it has to be the same now.
Which means my heterosexual lust is a perversion of the gift of human sexuality that God has given me. When I lust after a woman, I'm reducing her to a plaything that I use to get a vicarious thrill in my head. And Jesus, and consistently, God in all the scriptures says, you don't use a woman as a cute Barbie doll in your head to get a vicarious thrill sexually. Instead, you learn to build a relationship with a woman and treat her as a significant human being.
Significant, a significant human being or just a breeding stock, like the Bible would say. Like Paul would say. Again, I don't care about what Paul has to say consistently because of the shit that he's said countless of times. But Christians care so much. He would say women should shut up and not say stuff and not teach men in the church. And we see the recurring theme of one man marrying multiple women or having few other women aside from his main wife. You could take Abraham, for example, the father of faith. I mean, how did Ishmael came to be? Was he raped or something? No, he wasn't. He took another woman. I mean, we could see David, Solomon, these great kings, the high wisdom, idiots. So again, nowhere in the Bible can you clearly say, distinctively say, that men and women were made for each other, and this is the only way it can be. It's not like you stop listening or stop reading the Psalms or you stop reading David's story or Solomon's story, considering the fact that they married more than one woman. Is that wrong? Because Christians would say, oh, you have to be a monotheistic or a monogermy. I'm not sure what it is. You have to marry one person. Or about the people that married multiple people in the same Old Testaments that we're getting this information about lying with another man is wrong. Is that just for them? Because that's a sexual sin, if I'm not wrong. It has to do with your sexuality, right?
But going back to being gay, is that would you? But a lot of people, but I think that's the bit different. So in the part that you talked about sexual morality with a woman, looking at a woman as an object.
Yes.
I think we can all agree that's totally wrong. Well,
All agree?
okay, sorry. All of us in this room. All of us in this room. Hopefully you would also agree. I think all of us in this room.
Your text doesn't support your view. Where in the Bible does it say, oh yeah, look a woman as equal to you? I'm not sure if we're reading the same text, but I haven't found that text in the Bible. It doesn't even indicate it in many cases.
The pornography industry is doing quite well.
Yeah, and I think that's horrific, and I personally think that should be banned. But I think that's very horrific to see a lot of that. But I think we can agree that it's wrong to have sexual morality with another woman. If you're already tied to or even if you're not tied to a current one, it's still a bit wrong. I mean, if you're committed to someone.
Have you read the Bible? Am I wrong? Didn't David have multiple wives and literally killed someone to have his wife too? And what did God do? God didn't punish David. God killed the baby and then killed few other people other than David. Because apparently that's punishment, people. So again, I don't get where they're arguing this from.
Then to one person, then to look at other people or to have other thoughts about other people. I to like to say, I want to be with that person, or you're rating other people's hotness when you're committed to one person is really detracting from that relationship. if that makes sense.
Yeah, but don't you understand the thinking that says, I have sex with whoever I want to, and as long as the quality of sex is high and the price of the sex is low, I'm in a good situation. But if the quality goes down,
What the fuck? The quality of the sex I'm having is high, and the price of the sex that I'm having is low. I'm in a good place. What are you talking about, Cliff?
and the price goes up, why shouldn't I ditch that person and go out and get somebody else? And there's a real logic, right? Quality high of the sex, price low, I'm into it. Quality goes down, price goes up, bye bye, I'm out of here. I'm going to find somebody else who can turn me on more.
Well, I think if you want a real relationship, it goes beyond that. It goes much deeper than just that, the physical part of it. It goes to the emotional level.
Yes.
Much deeper to the emotional. I think the emotional is probably, you value it much more. And you
Yes.
say, yeah, in 50 years, how will this be? You want a partner for life that will help you grow, that will help you in so many ways, not just what you might do physically.
But if we're just beasts, if we're simply animals, you can give me all this gibberish about commitment and about loyalty. I don't buy it. Because in reality, if there is no God, we're just animals. We're just beasts.
I'm talking about on a selfish level. On a selfish level,
That makes no sense. And Cliff, yeah, we get it. You're old, but that makes no sense. But if you're just beast, we're not talking about evolution. We're not talking about whether humans were created by God in God's image. We're talking about homosexuality and how the Bible sees it. Is it right to say, oh yeah, you're gay, so you're going to hell? Does that make any sense? Are the laws just for specifically the people back then, or it's for everybody in general? Can you make a case for through the Bible that actually the Bible wasn't saying all time? You could say it was just saying specific people at this time. And is it worth it? I mean, the Bible clearly gave guidance for you to own a slave, but you're not owning a slave. Is it worth it? You pick and choose which laws to follow. Why follow this? That's the question. Why is homosexuality a sin? It has nothing to do with we're just all animals. Yes, we actually are animals. Whether you believe in it or not, that's literally a fact. We are animals. And yes, it would make sense for emotions and love and commitment to be and develop through evolution, considering the fact that that helps our survival. So, try explaining this to Cliff. I don't know how much time it is as to continue saying this, and scientists have to continue saying this stuff. Like, you can actually prove so much of this stuff coming from evolution. If a if a if a mother loved the child that they just give birth to, wouldn't that help the survival of the child in terms of them taking care of the child? If a father is also love the child, wouldn't that just provide a stable environment for the child to grow and be better?
if you want some, let's say when you're 50, 60, 70 years old, if you want someone who will be there for you, to care for you, then you've got to do this on a selfish level, beyond religion. Would you agree with me?
Well, I can promise you, I hope there is a lot more to my marriage than simply my wife wanting me to take care of her when she's 60, 70, 80 years old and gets Parkinson's or Alzheimer's.
And I was just giving one example why a good marriage would be on a selfish reason beyond God.
Okay, good. Good. And so, yes, irrationally, I think that makes some sense. That there is a real value to a lifelong commitment. And that is, I think, thinking well. That's thinking reasonably.
Mm-hmm.
That's thinking the long haul, not just instant gratification in the here and nows by whoever can turn me on best. And that's good thinking. Yeah, Ellie, I like it.
Yeah, but in terms of being gay,
I mean, did he got his bachelor degree in dodging questions? That's good thinking. That's rational. That's thinking in a long haul. You're not just thinking about your own and you want to get sex and get on with it. No, you think about the long haul. That's another question.
Yes.
Is that a sin? Is that a sin? And
No,
why is it a sin?
it is not a sin
It's
to
not a
have
sin.
to have an urge to have sex with someone of the same sex.
No, but
What
the
is the
physical.
sin is if I practice it,
Yeah.
then it is sinful. The same way, if I look at a woman and say, wow, she's gorgeous, that's not sinful.
I thought I was lost. Isn't that the entire thing that's lost? Did Jesus literally say that if you think about a woman, or have this sexual thought, which technically you can't control. But anyways, even if you don't have the sexual thought and you're like, oh my god, she's so gorgeous. She's like a 10 out of 10. He's a 10 out of 10. They them is a 10 out of 10. That's a sin. It's like if you think about killing someone, or no, not even thinking about killing someone. If you are angry at them, you basically murder. You committed murder. You might as well be put in jail. So that's lost, Cliff.
What is sin is if I use her in my head to get a vicarious thrill, or if I use her physically to get a thrill, a physical thrill, that is denigrating a human being created in the image of God. And God says, don't denigrate people. Learn to respect people.
Sure, but no, I understand that. But why is it wrong? Why is it considered wrong?
It's considered wrong because God made us male and female. And God has said, male and female, I created to have sex with each other within the context of a lifelong commitment. And if you pull the sex out of that context, that's twisting the purpose for which God gave us our sexuality. See, so the bottom line question, Ellie, is did God create us for a purpose? And if life is meaningless, it doesn't matter who I have sex with. I can have sex with my golden retriever dog, and there's nothing wrong with that because I just create my own meaning. I create my own morality. But if God created my life for a purpose, to love and worship Him and to love and serve others, and if God created my sexuality for a purpose, then as a thinking person, I want to understand God, what's the purpose for which you created my sexuality?
Look at those little things that they do to make everyone, the viewers, think, I don't know, gay people or some terrible, horrendous people that should not be given a right to even breathe. Or if I have sex with my dog, if I have sex with my golden retriever, if there's no purpose to life, I can do whatever I want. That's not what we're talking about. Where is he drawing this from? This still doesn't show, like I said, his point of why homosexuality is wrong is God created man and female and we're supposed to have sex in the context of marriage. Like I've said, many of the faith leaders in their entire religion, prophets, not really prophets, but the kings, I guess Abraham is a prophet, have had multiple wives. I mean, how in the world did Adam and Eve repopulate the entire earth? Was Eve just popping out babies? I mean, it still took 9 months, right? Even if she lived, what, 1,000 years? That would still be like 900 and something babies. Which wouldn't make sense because there's a range of when a woman is fertile. Actually, what am I even saying? Jesus could just do what, I mean, God could just do whatever you want. Anyways, it doesn't make sense. Like you would say some stupidness like, oh my goodness, God created a male and female and you're supposed to only have sex in the context of marriage when there's multiple examples in the Bible that says otherwise. It doesn't make sense that you will say that. I'm currently editing this right now, and I just noticed I never clarified what I meant by marriage. When I'm saying marriage, I mean one man and one woman in the context of how Cliff is describing it. So, I mean, I guess David is an example of having sex outside of marriage. He technically got punished for that. But in terms of just one man and one woman, that has never been a thing. Doesn't make sense, considering there's so many examples of people that were not punished by God and God did not say not to do it, that took on multiple wives.
And he did not create us, according to the scriptures, for us to have sex with people of the same sex.
But why can't someone have that relationship? What's like actually wrong? What you're saying to me is saying it's wrong because God said so, and because God said a man and a woman is a right relationship to have.
It's a violation of the purpose.
So I'm guessing I understand what he's asking. He's trying to understand why Cliff thinks it's wrong. Why is it wrong? No, oh my God, God said it's wrong, so it's wrong. Why is actually murder wrong? Is it wrong because God said it's wrong, or is it wrong because you're taking another man's life, you're taking another human being's life, and not giving them the opportunity, I guess, to be alive? You're taking away their rights to be a human. You're offing them.
Purpose for which God gave us our
Is
sexuality.
the purpose to have kids, or what's wrong about that? What's actually wrong about a man and a man, and a woman and a woman?
What if the purpose was to have kids? Would you have something? Would you have an issue with that?
Well, some people would say that a lot of men and women, even when they're together, can't have kids.
Right.
Yeah.
But a man and a man can't have, or a woman and a woman can't have any kids. For
Yeah.
sure.
But
Yes, they can. Yes, they can. A man and a man can have kids, and a woman and a woman can have kids. A man and a man, one man can have a kid with a woman being a carrier. And even in the term, a man and a man can have kids. Yes, yes, they can. Yes, they can. But if you're talking about male biological males, biological, like these are the posters that also try to say that, even though so, they still can have kids. Like they can actually have kids. Not together, but they can have kids in the family. And if that's the goal, adoption. When did the Bible said adoption is also wrong? They just add a kid. Adoption.
can they can adopt, and there's a lot of adopted kids out there
And they're
that don't have a
adopting.
home.
They're adopting
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
from couples that are not man on man, woman on woman.
It doesn't have to be couples. It could literally be their child, and a woman being a carrier. I mean, are they living in some timeline that I'm just confused to? Like, what is going on? You don't have to be in a wedding to have a child. You don't have to be in a relationship to even have a child. Jeez, jeez.
So, just practically speaking, I don't think that's the whole purpose of marriage. Even though "be fruitful and multiply" is very close to man and woman, but I think that's a big part of it, certainly. But the unfair. I think
So
you're
the
getting
big part of marriage is for women to pop out babies. Talking about, respecting them.
underneath this to the unfairness of it all. It just seems like it's unfair. But we know many non non-practicing homosexuals who have definitely the tendency and preference to someone of the same sex, and they're living monogamous lives, and others have actually ended up marrying somebody of the opposite sex. And those who live the single lifestyle, it's fascinating to listen to them and to read some of their books. Their own personal testimonies and how their closeness with God is so much stronger than what it was dating somebody of the same sex, or if they were bisexual, somebody different.
Why? What's
Who
actually
gives a shit? Who gives a shit? No, actually, who cares? You decide to become a nun, never have sex in your life. You decide to become, I forgot the male, when you're referring to a man that decides to not have sex. Which, try, I guess, a priest. You decide to become a priest, actually. Not a Catholic priest, but some other priest. And you decide to not have sex in your life, actually, all of them are just. Uh, you decide to not have sex in your life. You decide to refrain from it. Who cares? Generally, who cares? That has nothing to do with the general population. That has nothing to do with the question of homosexuality. Are you saying all gay people should refrain from sex? Because that would be stupid.
Actually different to dating someone of the same sex to dating someone of the opposite sex.
What's the difference, like physically or
Not physically, but like religiously, or like why religiously? Yeah.
because there's diversity throughout the Bible. You get diversity right early on, male and female. You get diversity right with God's speaking and metaphor of
The question is, what is the difference between a man and a man versus a woman and a man? The traditional marriage versus two men, two women marrying each other. What's the difference? And Stewart said diversity. How do people take these people seriously? How do you take this too seriously? His answer was diversity.
the church, the bride and the bridegroom, for example, in the New Testament. So, right on down, there's even a spiritual element to male and female, not just producing kids, but also the diversity between that is how God has created us to fit and actually build a family. So, in terms of the physical interaction and the endorphins that are flowing, the physical act itself, you could get a vicarious thrill that is maybe just as strong. But in terms of the diversity of it, that's how you get throughout the scripture. It's not just Leviticus and Romans talking about don't do it. It's a diversity of this is how God has created us to fit.
What the fuck? The diversity of it? Just say you have no fucking reason. The diversity of it? The spiritual diversity. No, but physically you could get probably the same thing. But spiritually, considering the fact that a spirit technically would be not any gender to begin with, it's a flicking spirit. I mean, technically it would be a gender, but it would not be a sex, which is what they're referring to. It's not like you can have kids as a spirit. I don't know how it works. Maybe you can. But seeing the diversity in spirit, is that why God created the black people too? Why other ethnic group, different color, different shaders for the diversity? So God created women for the diversity, created men for the diversity, He created unisex people for diversity. I actually just lost a few brain cells.
Together in order to build a family that's under a covenant. Because it gets back to marriage. And I think that's interesting in your sincerity and honesty over this type of it's selfish for me later on in life to actually have this helpmate who can help me through when I have Alzheimer's. Well, from an evolutionary perspective, the whole reason why you act ethically and morally should be for selfish reasons. And I think we know that's not what we want. And that's not hopefully how we truly live.
We're all selfish to an extent. I mean, no matter how you want to put it, we're all selfish to an extent. It hits us in surviving. If I go out and decide to give to the poor and I get some, I feel good about it, and I did it again, to an extent you could say that's selfishness, but it's a good thing. Feeling good about doing good things is a good thing. This idea that selfishness is always bad is wrong. It's bad when it's hurting the entire group, but if you're doing it to support everyone and help everyone, it's a pretty good thing. And marry someone in hope that they will be there when you're 60, marry someone in hope that they will be there with you through the hard times is not really, I'm not sure how to say that. Can you even say that's selfishness or just you're in a relationship? Meaning, one of the points of being in a relationship is that you're together and you help each other through struggles. Sometimes I just feel like they're not even thinking. They just say shit like, oh, diversity, and then start pulling out random Bible verses to try to save themselves from seeing literal garbage that they already spewed out. Well, that's all I have for you today. Thank you all for watching. If you liked the video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Have a lovely day, people.